Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Terry here, and well, I've had a few days now to play around with the Apple MacBook Air 2020 edition, 16 gig, 1 terabyte SSD. It's been a few years since I've had a Mac of any sorts. I did switch away a few years back. I actually got rid of all my laptops, all my computers, and had switched entirely to the iPad Pro 2017 12.9 inch. At the time, I was looking to minimize my electronics and just get by with what I actually needed instead of what my usual habit used to be, which was having a gaming PC, having a laptop, having a tablet, having a phone, having all these electronics. And I got by with that for about a year or so, and then realized I was going to need a laptop again, mostly for work. Unfortunately, with my workplace, I can't get by with just a iPad or any kind of tablet for that matter if I'm working from home. I need to be able to remote in and access the office from there. So it did become necessary once again to get a laptop, which initially about, 3 years ago now, I guess, I wound up picking up the Surface Laptop 2. And, I've used Windows machines for years and years. I've used Windows more than I have Mac, but I have dabbled with the Macs. I've had a Mac Mini, I've had a MacBook, a MacBook Pro, briefly had a MacBook Air in the past, but it had some problems, so that went back. I have had an iMac, and now I have the MacBook Air M1. Now, of course, for a couple of years now, 3 years, almost 4 years, I've had the iPad Pro, and you know what? When I saw the M1s, I was really curious about them, and all my other devices are Apple. I have, it's aging now, but I've got the iPhone XS Max, using an Apple Watch, and of course I have the iPad Pro, and I was thinking, does it really make a lot of sense for me to have a Windows machine if everything else that I have is Apple? And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, certainly. Lots of people have a Windows laptop and they have an iPhone and Apple Watch or whatever you might have. But I decided, you know what, I kind of miss using the Apple architecture. I miss the Apple ecosystem to an extent. Yeah, there's something to be said for the costs of being, fully into their ecosystem, but there's also a lot of convenience. So behind me here is the Apple MacBook Air, and over here actually is still the Surface Laptop 2. Now this has actually been sold. This is going away tomorrow actually, but I was curious how I would feel about getting rid of my only Windows laptop and if I would be comfortable going back to the Mac. My first impressions of this machine, just like with most of anybody else that has wound up testing or picking up any M1 machine, is it is bloody impressive. Battery life is phenomenal. The performance, considering it's a MacBook Air, which was usually one of their low-end machines, is amazing. The last video I put out, I rendered and I did everything on the MacBook Air. I don't have Final Cut Pro right now. I actually used, this is another benefit of the M1, I used the iPad version of LumaFusion, and I was able to edit and render my video on the MacBook Air. So if I were to hold it up right now, for example, let me just get it back on screen here. So I'm going to launch it here. This is LumaFusion. Watch how long it takes for this to load. Done. Up and running. Everything's there that would need to be. I can scrub through my footage. There is no lag, there's no delay. Now, bear in mind, I only shoot in 1080p. I'm using a Canon M50, so 4K isn't really ideal on this camera, but for my purposes, it's fine. I did not expect that an iPad, a mobile app, was going to be this easy to use and this responsive on a laptop. I may not even need to get LumaFusion, I may not even need to get Final Cut Pro. I probably will eventually, just because I did use it before and I was pretty familiar with it. But for now, this gets me by. I don't need the iPad Pro, which is packed up right now for sale. I didn't think that I'd be comfortable getting rid of it because I love that iPad. It's been a great device, it's been very useful, but the reality is the M1 MacBook Air is probably going to serve my purposes. I don't really need it anymore. There's definitely some things that I need to get used to. My Surface laptop here has for about the last year and a half been connected to both of these monitors that are behind me. Now right now I've got MacBook Air hooked up here, Surface laptop is hooked up here. The big drawback with the M1 MacBook Air or the M1 MacBook Pro is that they only natively support one external monitor. So I have to give one of these up, or there is a workaround, which if you've looked it up on YouTube by any chance or online, you can use display link adapters, which will allow you to use more than one monitor, but there can be some drawbacks in performance. There's also been known to be some issues with the monitors not waking up with the laptop, for example. So it's something I'll probably dabble in eventually. The reality is what I'm probably going to do is get rid of these two monitors and just get a ultra wide or a 4K screen. But that's down the road, I think. Who knows, maybe next week I might end up picking one up. But that is a disadvantage because my work requires the use of at least two screens to function ideally. In fact, when I used the Surface laptop, sometimes what I was doing was I had the laptop screen, the two monitors, and my iPad Pro connected to the servers that I use to get everything done to be as efficient as possible. So if and when I'm working from home, that's going to be a bit of an adjustment. I'm curious to see how I feel working with that. But I'm willing to take that chance because I started out with just the one screen. I started out with just the Surface laptop and then initially with the first of these two monitors, and I got by with it, so it's not that bad. Connectivity is a bit strange. If you know any of the newer MacBooks, they do only have the two USB-C/Thunderbolt ports that are side by side. So you can't just take a traditional thumb drive and plug it in, for example. You can't just plug in a monitor or a TV through HDMI because those ports aren't there. The Surface laptop has some of that, and it still needs adapters for certain things. But what I was able to do with the Surface laptop, I don't know if you can see back here, there is a little dock, which is actually the Surface dock, officially from Microsoft. Plugs in through one connection, which is their proprietary connection. And then once you hook that all up, on the dock you have several different USB-A ports. You have mini display ports, two of them, which is how the external monitors get hooked up. And it also supplies power to the Surface laptop. So everything through one connection, which is really, really convenient. Now, Apple doesn't really have a native solution for that, at least currently for their MacBooks. There are third-party products and lots of them. There's lots of Thunderbolt or USB hubs, which will pretty much allow the same thing. Some of them do have power delivery, so you can plug in the MacBook and charge through the USB hub or the docking station, for example. But there's still the limitation, at least with most of them, that you can still only connect one external monitor because the M1 chip, the MacBook right now, at least as it is, does not natively support 2+ monitors without the workarounds that I mentioned. So in my case, the way that the MacBook is hooked up is a little bit more complex, a little bit messier. If you can see this behind me here, I have an Anker 7 and 2 USB hub. This has two USB 3.0 USB-A ports. It has a Thunderbolt and USB-C pass-through, power delivery pass-through, which is actually plugged in right now. It has an additional USB-C port, and it has the HDMI out. But I have these three wires that are all going out of the MacBook. It's definitely not as elegant or as clean as the Surface laptop. So what I'm probably going to do eventually, once I get everything figured out here, I'm going to keep that little hub because that's also got an SD card reader in it. So plugging in my camera cards, for example, I need that there. It avoids me having to buy a whole bunch of separate dongles and stuff from Apple, which this for, I think it was $70, replaces what would probably be well over $100 worth of Apple's individual dongles. But I think what I'll wind up doing once my setup is all finished here is I'm going to set up a Thunderbolt docking station, or Thunderbolt dock, I guess, back here. Maybe I'll look into one of the ones with the display link adapters. Depends what I decide to do about the monitors. I like the ultra-wide monitors, but do I want to spend money on one just because I switched to the Mac? I'm not sure yet. So I'll look into that. The main thing is I want the convenience of just one cable being plugged into the MacBook instead of all this stuff that's all over the place. because you know what, my desk is already kind of cluttered as it is. I mean, when I get rid of the one laptop and possibly get rid of, you know, one of the monitors here, it's going to be a little cleaner, but I hate having a whole bunch of wires all over the place. And that is one disadvantage with Apple, is that unless you use some sort of a hub or a docking station, you're going to have wires everywhere. But you know what, that goes for some Windows machines too, so it's not really fair to say it's strictly an Apple problem. All that said, I'm still learning, I'm still relearning Mac OS. I have a long way to go. I have some ideas for what I want to do with this machine going forward, especially being that I've kind of consolidated everything again. I've gotten rid of, or am getting rid of, my iPad. I wanted to possibly look into programming and possibly look into some coding, and I know I've already downloaded and installed Xcode. I haven't got a bloody clue what I'm doing with it yet, but I'm hoping that this will be the start of me getting back into that. Programming is something that I was into many years ago, and I never really should have given it up, but I just haven't had the time or haven't felt into it, and now this is something that might be a new challenge. It would be fun to develop iOS apps, for example, or Mac apps, and see what I can do with it, see if I can actually come up with something useful. But the main thing now is that I have this laptop that is fully capable. I don't have any of the drawbacks or the limitations that I sometimes felt with the iPad. It's a full-on desktop or laptop operating system. I can run pretty much anything and anything, everything that I should need to. You know, I tried doing the remote work from home stuff with the iPad, and it could be done, but it really wasn't practical. So I have this machine that's very, very powerful, very efficient, has a fantastic battery life. I'll be able to take it with me if I'm on the road somewhere, if I go, you know, on vacation or something, but I need my machine with me. I'll be able to do everything, and I won't feel limited by it anymore. So that's kind of my first impressions. I'm not into the benchmarks and all that kind of stuff. I don't care about those numbers, although yes, it is impressive to see what this machine can do. My thing really is going to be real world. I want to see how this machine serves me going forward. And can I survive strictly on a MacBook, or will I wind up wanting an iPad again? I know in my mind that, yes, I like tablets, I always have. Having an iPad or an iPad Pro again would also be useful for example, using the sidecar function, because maybe I'll be on the road but I need more than one screen or more than what the real estate of the one monitor can give me. So I might look into an iPad again, but I'm not sure about that yet. The main thing is going to be, hey, I'm back on the Mac. I think that I might be on the Mac to stay, because you know, Apple has really pushed the capabilities of these machines, and I like where they're going. There was a while where I kind of shied away from Apple again, but I'm impressed. This machine is pretty awesome. So we'll see how it goes from here. If you guys have any questions, any comments, suggestions, if you have any recommendations for good applications to use, for example, I mean, I'm using Microsoft Office, I'm using, like I said, LumaFusion here for the video editing, but I'm going to need to relearn everything. I'm going to have to figure out, you know, what kind of workflow works best for me on the Mac. But I'm excited to find out how it goes. Guess that's it for now. I will catch you guys in the next one. Alright, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed. Click the like if you like it, and I'll see you next time.